so firstly, welcome. I feel like I'm just sort of doing my usual Thursday night routine in my kitchen, which is making chicken soup, which I generally do Thursday night. So I feel like you're just a part of my Shabbos prep today. So it's exciting to invite you all in here for my normal Thursday night routine of making my chicken soup. I like to make the chicken soup Thursday night because when it sits for a day, it does tend to be a bit more flavorsome. But frequently, if I get busy, then I'll end up doing it on Friday, and it's pretty much, 98% is good. So welcome. Okay, so if you'll have the recipe here, so it's got all the ingredients that you'll need, and you can either use a whole chicken, or you can use some chicken frames and chicken wings. Sometimes I like to use a whole chicken because I serve the chicken in the soup. Definitely years ago, our parents, grandparents, that's what they were doing. They would have a fish course for Shabbos, and then following that, they would have a chicken soup with the chicken inside, and that was the meal, and it's quite a wholesome meal. If you just want to have the chicken broth, then using this probably works out a little bit cheaper, and it gives a lot of flavor to the chicken soup as well. So it just depends on how you want to make your chicken soup. Frequently, I will use a whole chicken, and then I use that chicken when I make, and then I'll use that chicken often on a Sunday night for leftovers when I reinvent my chicken soup, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But for right now, just have a large pot, and I'm going to put the chicken in to the pot. Just good to clean the chicken, any little sort of bits of fat. I'm just gonna remove some of that and then put that in the chicken, into the pot.
Is there water in your pot now, Nechama, Dina?
So there we go. Now I'm gonna make a double recipe because I usually make a double recipe of anything I'm cooking for my family. So I'm going to use both, but you can really use just either or. Now with the chicken frames, it's a good idea. It's not necessary, you don't have to, but it's helpful if you want, you can put it into one of these bags. They're cheesecloth bags. I get them from Prince's. It's called Sack and Boil. You can see that there, a sack and boil bag. And when I put the chicken frames in there, it just means I can remove them afterwards quite easily. And it saves straining the soup. Straining the soup is not 100% necessary step, but it does give the soup a slightly clear, just slightly more clear. So sometimes I do that. So here I've got my chicken frames. I've put them into a little bag. If I don't have a bag, frequently I do it without a bag, but this makes it a little bit more convenient. And then just tie it up. And put that in. And then I've got my, now remember you can do either or. I'm just making a very large batch because I'm making my chicken soup for Shabbos. So this is how I generally do it. And I usually use about 6 wings. There's no real specific recipe of chicken soup. Every single chicken soup is going to taste different with the exact same ingredients. It never works out 100% the same. It depends how high your fire was. It depends on the chicken, how large it is, how much water you put in. It's never exactly the same. And I never had a recipe for chicken soup. I actually needed to create something because I was doing this. I had to start actually measuring and doing quantities. I've never, ever done that before until this past Friday. And so really you can play around if you want slightly more chicken, slightly more water. It's really not a strict science. It's very, very flexible, but this is a good start. And now I'm going to put in my water. Rivka, do you want to help me? Okay, so I'm going to put in, now in the recipe it said 12 cups of water. When I measured, I would say you're probably better off putting in more like 16 cups of water, whether you're using the chicken or you're using the chicken frames with the chicken wings. I think about 16 cups of water. So this is a 4 cup. So we need to do 4 of these. And I've got Rivka here helping me. Thank you, Rivka. You want to help me pour it in? Come. Pour it. So I would change that in the recipe to do 16 cups. Again, because I'm doing a double recipe, I'm actually going to do more, but 16 cups is what you want to put in now. Any questions till here? Anybody have any questions? Rivka, can you get more water? You put in 4 cups of water into this bowl for me, okay? Can you do that? Four of these big cups into that.
So do you make sure the water covers your chicken,
Fill
Nechama?
this one. Okay, put it in there. Okay, so we've got the chicken and we've got the water, and now we're going to put it on the fire. The most important thing is to make to a high flame. Might just take this off for 1 second. So we've got the chicken frames, we've got the chicken wings, or we've got the whole chicken, and we've got the water, and we put it onto the fire to boil. We want to get the fire going because what we want to do is as the fire starts to, whoops, okay? Thanks, Rivka. So as the water is bubbling just before boiling point, that's when you're going to remove the fat, which we'll do in a few minutes. Sorry, you okay? You got the 4. Oh, okay, thanks. Just add that because I'm just adding some extra water because I'm doing a double recipe, and I've got Rivka here helping me. Thanks. Okay, so while that's on the stove, I'm just going to get Rivka. Can you get the lid for that pot and put it on top? Thanks. So while that is reaching boiling point, perfect. Thank you. Almost perfect, but that's okay. I'm going to prep the vegetables. So I've already peeled the carrots and done a little bit of prep, but I tend to cut the carrots and everything into chunks. Now there are different variations of how you can do it, and sometimes I do vary just for a bit of a change, and sometimes I do it quite small. If you want sort of diced vegetables in your soup, you could do it that way. If you don't like the vegetables in your soup, then you can just put them also into another bag and you can remove it afterwards. We love the vegetables in the soup, so we definitely are going to do that. So I've got the carrots, the celery. We've got 3 carrots and 2 stalks of celery. We like zucchini. That's one of the sort of optional things. But I know some people don't, but my family does. If you're going to put in zucchini, it's best not to peel them because then they'll just disintegrate in the soup. So again, I'm just going to do chunks today. I'm just making more of the classical chicken soup. I've got 1 parsnip here. You can put in more than 1, but we're just going to put in 1 for today. Again, feel very flexible to play around with it. It's really not an exact science, and you'll just see which flavors appeal to you most. Then I put in the onion. I keep the onion whole. It's just peeled, and I'm going to put in some dill, but the dill I'll only put in at the end. So there, I've got all my vegetables prepped, which is usually what I do while I'm waiting for the chicken soup to sort of boil. Just before it boils again, I'm going to remove the fat. If you don't remove the fat before it boils and you're doing it the night before, you can always remove the fat the next day. Once you put it in the fridge, the fat rises to the top and it takes about 1 second to just remove the fat. This method takes a little bit longer when you remove the fat right before the boiling process. Personally, I love doing it. For some reason, it gives me a lot of satisfaction, and it sort of connects me to my mother because I have such clear memories every single week. My mother removing the fat just before boiling point, making sure that she got to the chicken soup. But if for whatever reason I've stepped away, and often I do, and I missed it, and it's already boiled to the top, so then I'll just do it the next day. If I'm doing the soup on Friday, then for sure I'll have to take the fat off, all that scum, just before the boiling point. So hands up, someone's asking a question. Where are we? Sorry. Just, can they unmute? Just unmute yourself if you have a question. That's much easier. Anyone with a question?
What are we doing with the onion, Nechama, Dina?
Hand up. Okay. All right, so we'll move on. Everything clear till now? Sorry? Everything clear till now? All we've done is we've put the chicken and the water in the pot. We've prepped our vegetables that we want to use. Again, there's other optional things you can put in. I do know people who like to put in sweet potato. It gives the chicken soup a very different flavor. Some people will put in turnip. So again, you could play around with this. It's really, really flexible. So while we're waiting for the chicken soup the water to go up, what we'll do is we'll do the matzo balls. So I know matzo balls are sort of, the food that we eat around Pesach. We tend to eat the matzo balls every single Friday night. Who likes matzo balls? You do? Love it? Yes, they're very popular in our family. So with the matzo balls, you just start off with the matzo meal. Actually, all I've got here is matzo meal. You use I usually use between probably more than one, probably about 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 cups of matzo meal. Sometimes I use the coarse and sometimes I use the fine matzo meal. You're going to get a very different texture, and so you can choose and you can see which one you prefer. Tonight I'm going to be using the coarse matzo meal. It's a little bit fluffier. It's just a matter of taste, how you like it. The fine matzo meal usually will become a little bit firmer. Okay. So all I've got is the matzo meal that I've measured out and I've put into this bowl. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to put some oil in. Matzo ball mixes are very convenient. I think all you add is water and you mix it. I find the matzo meal, making them from scratch, is really just one extra step. It's really just adding a few more ingredients and the product is very different. So we like to make the matzo meal from scratch, but if you're rushed or you're just making a very small batch, definitely the matzo meal mixtures are much, much more convenient. So we're going to put in our oil, 1/2 cup of oil. Again, I'm doing a double recipe, but put in 1/2 cup of oil. There we go. Rivka, do you want to put that in? Got our oil. We're going to put in 1/2 cup of water. Again, I'm doing a cup, but you can just do 1/2 cup because I make about 25 matzo balls or a bit more. Do you want to put that in? Thank you. It's a really simple recipe, this one. And we're going to put in 4 eggs. I'm going to do 8, but 4 eggs. I'm going to check the eggs. What are we checking for, Rivka?
Matzo.
Why?
Because we don't want blood in soup.
You don't want blood in soup. And what is blood? Is blood kosher?
No.
That's right. Blood's not kosher. So if we do find a blood spot, we need to chuck out that egg. That one. Let's see. Rivka, can you tell me how's my soup doing on the stove? Anyone's water
Yes.
starting to
Yes, ma'am. Nothing.
boil yet?
Still got it. Just fine.
3.
No.
So far, we're good with blood spots, so that's good. Sometimes you get a batch of eggs and none of them are good. Whoops, what is that? What do you see there?
Blood.
2 blood spots. What are we going to do with this egg?
Chuck it out.
Chuck it out. There we go. Wash out the top. And let's see if we can have luck with the next one. Svi, can you get me some more eggs from the fridge? Because I'm actually doing a double recipe here. So it's 4 eggs. We put in the oil, we put in the water, and what are we still missing? Can you check 3 more eggs over there? I'm going to add them. Yeah, just perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much. And to put in some salt, I put in somewhere between half a teaspoon and a teaspoon of salt. So I'm just putting in the salt now. And then we just mix it. Did I miss anything there? Don't think so. Matzo meal, oil, water, eggs, salt. Oh, and a little bit of pepper we can put in. Let's check up on our soup. One more. Want to put that in? There we go. Okay. Now, Rivka, do you want to mix? Come mix. Mix that very well. So really, it's a few more steps to a mixture. Now you can cook the matzo balls directly into the soup. The problem is it might eat up most of your soup. So what happens is when you cook it directly into your soup, it tends to eat up a lot of the soup. So I usually just do it in a separate pot of water with some salt. So I'll boil up some water and we'll do that. We've got 1 more egg coming in. Go ahead. Thanks, sweet. 2 blood spots you found. Wow. Okay. This is looking very good. So it's a little bit thick. That looks like a perfect mixture. Okay, I'm just going to show it here. That's sort of what you want it to look like. Again, I've done a double recipe, so it's probably a bit more than what you've got there. You don't want it too liquidy. Sometimes it's a bit more liquid than that, and that's fine. But again, if it's gonna be a bit more liquid, you'll probably get fluffier. It could be slightly more liquidy than this. It's absolutely fine. But if not, you can just add a little bit more matzo meal. Now, what I do with this is I put it into the freezer for 15 minutes, and then I'll cook it. In boiling water. So while that's in you can put it in the fridge for half an hour. You can even put it in the fridge overnight. So sometimes I'll just make the mixture on Thursday night. I'll put it in the fridge, and then Friday morning I'll actually cook it. So we'll get some boiling water onto the stove, and this can go, just cover it, and this can go into the freezer, and we'll cook these a bit later. Not the spoon? Okay, good idea. Let's get this. You are a good helper. Ready? Do you know how to do this?
Did you put in?
Yeah, let's just put it over first.
Nechama, Dina, how much salt did you put in?
I think we need 1 more piece.
Nechama, Dina, how much salt did you put in?
go.
Nechama, Dina.
Amazing. Okie doke. So we'll put this in the freezer because it'll be a bit quicker. Fee, can you just put this in the freezer upstairs? There, because there's no room downstairs. Thank you. Good help. Okay, how's our chicken soup going? It's starting to get there. There's more and more boiling up. So chicken soup, which is called the Jewish penicillin, it really does have a lot of healing properties to it. This is something that's been proven scientifically recently, and all the hype about bone broth and things, like, it's really chicken soup. It's like we've always known that there's something really medicinal as well. We can feel it whenever I have chicken soup. It definitely feels very warming and healing, but it actually also has healing powers. It's good for hydration, etc. How much salt in the matzo balls? You can unmute if you want to ask a question as well. In the matzo balls or in the soup?
In the matzo ball. I wasn't sure whether you can hear me.
Bring it down here. How much salt in the matzo balls or in the
Matzo ball.
In the matzo balls, I put about probably about 3/4 of a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon in the matzo balls. Again, as you experiment, you'll see I've got my salt here. I like to use kosher salt generally in the cooking, or Himalayan salt. I find it's just a little bit thicker, and I probably use about 3/4 of a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon. Again, it depends. If you find it too salty, reduce it. It's very open-ended. In the soup, I put the salt at the end of the cooking process, and I put in about a tablespoon. I usually start with that, and then if I think it needs a little bit more, I'll add to that. So I've got my vegetables here. I won't put in the vegetables until after I've skimmed the fat, because it does make it a little bit harder to skim the fat. So if I know that I'm definitely not going to skim the fat, I've just put on the chicken soup. Sometimes I'm walking out, I can add the vegetables then, and then let the soup cook, and then the next day I'll take off the fat. But generally speaking, I'll have the vegetables prepped while I'm waiting for this to get ready, and then I will only put in the vegetables after I've skimmed the fat. Any other questions? My mother always tells me that my grandmother, when she made chicken soup, she wanted the clearest chicken soup. She wanted to make sure there's absolutely no chicken fat. We can see this is starting to come up. And what she would do is she would actually, after the water boiled, she would chuck out that water, and then she would put in fresh water and start again, having removed all the water, all the fat and everything. That's how she would do it. I don't know. It's just a story that I remember from my childhood. Now the soup will cook after we skim the fat and add the vegetables. We'll cook for about probably, again, it's not an exact science, but you can cook it for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. I usually don't cook it for much longer than that, maybe 5. But I've been experimenting a lot with how many hours I cook my chicken soup, and I actually prefer it about 4 hours or so. I tried a lot longer because I've seen that in a lot of cookbooks, the longer you cook it, the tastier it will be. But I personally have found that the flavor just gets too much. So the chicken soup is getting to a really, really good point. If you can move the camera so we can see how the pot of chicken soup is going here. And then I'll skim off all the scum that sort of rises to the top. Okay, can you see that? So this is my favorite part. And you just remove that. Again, just before it reaches boiling point. This is a really good time now. And I just remove that. It reminds me of a teaching I once learned that when you get boiled, all the negativity comes to the top. Sometimes when you find someone is stressed, there's a lot of negativity, but then it's easy to remove. And what you receive after that something very, very clear, that sometimes we go through a tough time, and that's just to remove some negativity. And even though at the time there's so much negativity and you feel the negativity, it might not even bring out the best in you, but after going through that experience, what you get is a beautiful, clear, you've cleansed something within yourself. And I think about that every single week when I clean my chicken soup. Probably wait another minute because it's probably going to be a bit more rising to the top. Now, if you're watching this and thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, like there's no way I'm going to stay up now for 4 hours while my chicken soup cooks, or 3 hours or whatever, however long you want to cook it. After you boil it and you remove the fat, you can let it cool and put it in the fridge and then cook it tomorrow. I didn't know this trick, but Bulama was in Melbourne Seminary and she was the chicken soup chef. She used to make it every time they had Shabbos together in the dorm, and that's what she used to do. And she said the chicken soup was always delicious. She was always asked to make it the following week. So that is something that you can do as well. So if you want to turn it off, you can add the vegetables and then just turn it off and cook it tomorrow. If you think like, oh no, it's already 8 o'clock, there's no way I want to be up till 11 until my soup's finished. So there we go. There's just a bit more here. We're nearly done. I think it's pretty good. And in the morning, I'll remove if there's anything further to remove. It'll sort of be floating on top. It gets solid. Okay. So now I've got all my vegetables here. Again, you could chop the vegetables. You could chop them quite finely if you want them to be swimming around. From time to time, I do it. I generally do it this way, but every so often I get in the mood and I'll do it differently. Do you want to say something, Rivka? You look like you want to say something. No? Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to add the vegetables now. Now that I've cleared the soup, I'm going to add all the vegetables. There we go. And the vegetables add so much flavor to the soup. And different vegetables will give you a slightly different soup. So the fun of chicken soup is that it comes out different every time and you can try a different variation every single time. Now I'll bring it up to a boil again. And after it boils, I'm just going to lower it to a sort of medium to low flame. And I lower it to a medium flame so that when sort of sometimes even to quite a low simmer, so it can cook for a very, very long time. And you want to get the flame right, that it's cooking, but it's not going to boil out and reduce your soup too much. If you find that it reduced it way too much, you can always add a little bit of water and that will just, help it, but you're trying to get the flame right. And it takes a bit of trial and error. And even now, sometimes I put the flame a bit too high. And that's one of the reasons also why the chicken soup always tastes so different. It depends what flame. So I put it on quite a low flame, but that it's still bubbling. And it's just sort of simmering, and allow it to simmer for, again, about 3 hours, 4 hours. If it's less soup, a bit less. And now we're going to go see our matzo balls. Svi, can you get me the matzo ball mixtures? I keep the onion whole. I actually just put in the whole onion. Some of my kids really like it, so they'll scoop it out. Sometimes some people will remove the onion, but you can do it really however you like. If you like pieces of onion in your soup, then you can dice it. Again, there's so many variations and they're all correct. And you just put it all together and it comes, each time is a new product. And so it really depends on your mood. I personally just put the whole onion in, and again, you could do it either way. So Tzvi's just going to get our matzo ball mixture. Oh, now you're going to get it? Okay, we'll just wait 1 minute, get it from the freezer. Any other questions here?
Just 1 minute. No,
Sorry?
just 1 minute.
Okay. Okay, we've got our matzo ball mixture here. When my mother-in-law makes matzo balls, she adds ginger. It's a Hungarian recipe, and it's got a wonderful flavor. I just keep it a bit more simple because so many times I have different guests, and some people like it and some people don't, but it's great. So another option is ginger, which is I think, Hungarian thing. So we've got our matzo ball mixture here. Can everyone see that? Let me just. And I didn't heat up the water right now, but after having been in the fridge, it's quite firm. And what I do with the matzo ball mixture, firstly, I just wet my hands always first. So what you would do is boil up the water. And when it's boiling, you just make matzo balls that sort of look like that. You can do it whatever size you like. Some people like them small, some people like them big. And then you throw them into the boiling water, okay? And you just need to sort of keep wetting your hands so that it rolls nicely. And often I get my kids to help me. Bloma's generally the one who does the matzo balls in our family. And when we have the virtual Shabbaton, I think she made about 200 matzo balls. So, and she had to check 32 eggs. So that was quite a feat. Now my hands are a bit sticky, so I would just and there we've got our matzo balls. You cook them for about half an hour in boiling water. As Libby always says, from quoting her mother-in-law, that you shouldn't lift the lid when you're cooking the matzo balls, because otherwise they're not going to work. I sometimes do lift the lid and it does work, but I do feel guilty every time I lift the lid. So that's just very strict instructions that I received. It will expand quite a lot. So these will be quite a nice size. Here, this will become quite a bit. So I would say it probably maybe it becomes 1.5 times the size when they're cooked in the water. How do you know that when they're ready? They cook about half an hour, and usually they're ready within half an hour. If you're unsure, you could take out one and open it, and you can see if it's quite raw inside, but usually about half an hour in boiling water, and it's ready. Yeah, that usually works. Any other questions about matzo balls or chicken soup? Sorry, what's the question? Soup is boiling? Good. So when your soup is boiling, just put it to a low flame and let it simmer for about 3 hours. When it finishes simmering and you want to switch it off, you can remove the chicken or the chicken frames. We like to eat the wings, so we'll eat the wings. I'll throw out the frames, and you end up with a clear chicken soup. If you want to strain it for a slightly clearer soup, you can do that. Is that clear? Any further questions about that? Sorry, I can't see the chat, so I'm just trying to get the questions from Tzvi, who's helping me here on the computer. Any other questions? No other questions. So I hope you all enjoy your chicken soup this Friday night. I will be thinking about everyone in their homes eating their chicken soup.
What
And if you have
what do
questions
you-
later tonight or tomorrow, you can always text me. I'm very happy to try and help you. I'm not the chicken soup expert, but I might become. So if you have any questions, you know, feel free to text me, and I'm happy to try and help you.
What do you season the soup with other than like the vegetables? Do you put salt and pepper? Do you put a chicken stock cube in? Do you put any seasoning in?
I just use salt. I will add the salt when it's finished. And sometimes in the last few minutes of cooking, I'll add dill because I like the flavor of the dill in the chicken soup. But I don't add maybe a little bit of pepper. I don't add anything else. You can, if you want parsley, you can add different things, but I don't. I just keep it clear with a bit of salt. And again, sometimes I'll even put the dill in whole and then just remove it. After it cooks maybe 15 minutes or so, the last 15 minutes of cooking. And it just infuses that flavor. For the matzo balls, the oil that I used was canola oil. Sometimes I do use olive oil and it does work. And it's absolutely fine. So just really any oil, but mostly used in the past canola or olive oil. We can just have any other questions about that? Okay. Well then, thanks for joining. And I hope you enjoy your soup. It's certainly a big staple in our family. We enjoy chicken soup Friday night, but we also enjoy it many other nights. And we love Libby's chicken soup, which we get quite frequently. So, and then you can add, if you don't want to make matzo balls, you can add noodles. Lakshin is very popular in the chicken soup. You can really, so what I often do on a Sunday night though, is I will save the chicken from the soup and I will then add different things to the soup to make different variations of chicken soup. So for me, I always think to make extra chicken soup rather than less, because chicken soup is always opportunity to recycle it or to make something else. So sometimes we just have leftover chicken soup, but frequently I'll make either Chinese chicken soup on a Sunday night, which I just put in a lot of Chinese vegetables and spices. And I could, sorry? 1 second. Okay. So, from the mixture, you get about maybe about 16 matzo balls. Again, it depends how large you like them, but I would say something like 16. If you wanted to have the recipe, you can do that as well if you wanted less. But they freeze beautifully. You could just put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them, and they freeze really, really, really beautifully. So yeah, I was just saying that sometimes we use our leftover chicken soup. We make a Chinese chicken soup, we make a Thai chicken soup, we made last Sunday night we had with lots of vegetables and flavors, sauteed that, added the chicken soup, added the chicken, and added rice noodles, and it becomes a whole meal. So I've got a few different variations of what I do with the chicken soup sometimes on Sunday night. So for me, making a big pot of chicken soup, either you can freeze some or you can reuse it in a different form, or you can just make a smaller pot if you don't want that much. But this will give you quite a lot of chicken soup. It should give you a good sort of 14 cups of chicken soup or so. So quite a few portions, maybe about 8 to 10 servings. And then the matzo balls, you'll get about 15, 17, I don't know. Any further questions? Yes, it does have coconut cream. I could actually post on the Schmooze some recipes of chicken soup that we do for Sunday night, which are, sorry? Oh, another show next week now. I think we'll do something else, not just chicken soup. But if you want, I can post some really good chicken soups that we've made with our leftover chicken soup, and it becomes a dinner for Sunday night, which is a one-pot dinner and doesn't take a lot of effort once you've already got the chicken and the chicken soup. So it's a really handy thing.
and hearty.
Anyway, so thanks for joining. Have a beautiful Shabbos. And please God, we will do another cooking show one day. We might get some people from the community to share. If you have something that you want to share, let me know. And maybe we'll have various people sharing different recipes. I've got my chicken soup bubbling here, cooking nicely. And just gonna lower that a bit. Yeah. And have a beautiful Shabbos, everyone. Thanks for joining. Please stay, guys.
Thanks for joining.
Good evening.